Good evening. I would like to call this meeting to order. Mr. Lotzenheiser, may I have roll call, please?
President Wade, we have 3 board members in attendance. We have 1. Is she attached yet?
I don't believe so. Okay, so
we
she
have
may
one
be
that will
joining
be
us.
joining us remotely. So Ms. Schultz will be joining us remotely, but we do have 3 in attendance today.
Please join me in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Zimmerman, do we have her to check, or am I going to motion without? Okay, perfect. I just didn't want to, we can check before we start getting votes. I motion to approve the agenda. That would be Ms. Jarman is seconding. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That would be Ms. Schultz, correct?
Correct.
Motion carries 4-0. Welcome, Ms. Schultz. Mr. Lotzenheiser, you are up.
President Wade, members of the board, we get to start our Higley happenings again now that school's back in session and people are back from the summer. And so we have 3 different recognitions that we would like to share with the governing board and with our community about some outstanding work that was done here within the district. And so as we get started, I'm going to call the first person up, if they'll come stand right in the middle, and then I'll read about them for a little bit, have them explain a little bit about what they've done, and then we can go ahead and take a picture. So for my first one, would Mr. Hutchison come forward, please? Let's give a round of applause to Mr. Hutchison. So we're proud to recognize Andrew Hutchison, an 8th grade social studies teacher and NJHS advisor at Sossaman Middle School, for earning a Bronze Star through the National iCivics Civic Star Challenge. Andrew was selected as one of just 50 educators nationwide, and his achievement earned a $1,000 grant for his school in recognition of his commitment to civic education and student engagement. Congratulations, Mr. Hutchison, on this outstanding national honor. So if you wouldn't mind just explaining a little bit, you explained it to me earlier, to the governing board and to those people here about what this represented in this process.
Gladly. Thank you. And thank you guys for having me here. This is great. So essentially, this past year was the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, and there's a really great resource out there called iCivics, which was actually one of the brainchild of the Justice Sandra Day O'Connor from the state of Arizona. And part of iCivics' goal was for teachers to essentially brag a little bit about what we do to engage our students, teach them civics, and really also focusing on that Declaration of Independence piece. So they invited teachers from all over the country to essentially submit what we do with our lessons. How do we engage our kids? How do we teach them? So I described how I have a mock colonial town hall and the kids get to, well, I'm a tax collector and they get to yell and throw things at me, and we go outside and we protest the king, or we talk about the mock constitutional convention where I have them generate their own preamble, things like that. So I sent in some lessons and I got through round 1. And if you won round 1 in the fall, you were invited to write an essay contest about what teaching civics means to you. And so I wrote the essay, sent it, heard nothing for a couple of months, and then all of a sudden one day I found out I won the Bronze Star level, which was the $1,000 grant. So it was really exciting. This is my 8th year teaching. It's my 5th year at Sossaman teaching social studies, and I love my job, I love my students, so it was really an honor.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Mr. Hutchison. Well done.
That's fantastic.
We'll continue on with Sossman right now, and if I could have Cameron Kellogg come up to the front. So it's awesome when we can recognize our students who go above and beyond athletically. And so for Cameron, this happened at the end of last year, and so this is the first time we've been able to recognize her. But she took both first place in the 800-meter and the 1,600-meter races at the East Valley Conference Championship. So congratulations to her for being the EVC champion, and we look forward to continued success. I know we'd met you earlier with cross country, but now in track and continue on that awesome athletic achievement. So congratulations, Cameron. Wait. So I asked Cameron if she trains at all over the summer in this heat as she goes. And so she has a much more experience than just that. So tell us a little bit about what you told me.
Over summer, I have to train 3 times a week. For Junior Olympics, we have state at the beginning of summer. Then if you make it past that, then we have regionals in the middle of summer. And this year that was in Texas. Then once you make it past that, then you have Junior Olympics. Sadly, it's the first week of school. But if you go on Canvas, then you can get all your work done. You can stay on task. It works. You just sit in the hotel, and you just do all your work, and you stay caught up. It's actually really easy.
How'd you do this year?
I did pretty good. In my 15, I got 18th, and in my 800, I also got 18th.
So 18th in the nation. Thank you, Cameron, for that plug about staying engaged while you're traveling and practicing. That was not prompted. She did that on her own, so thank you. And now, if I could have Ashley Heap from Williamsfield come on up to the front. So we're proud to recognize Ashley for being selected as the recipient of the prestigious Horatio Alger National Scholarship. Chosen from students across all 50 states, Ashley earned a $25,000 scholarship in recognition of her academic achievement, leadership, community involvement, integrity, and perseverance. As part of this honor, she will travel to Washington, D.C. for a special national recognition ceremony. So congratulations to Ashley on this incredible achievement. So Ashley, could you tell us a little bit about your application and then what's next steps with you for this?
Yeah, thank you. So basically, I applied for the scholarship last spring, and I found out that I received it like a few months ago at the end of the school year. So I was one of 105 former juniors selected to receive it. And basically, I had to do an application with essays, a teacher recommendation, and I was able to talk about my community service involvement, such as with my school's HOSA chapter, the Governor's Youth Commission, and with Maricopa County Department of Public Health. So in the next spring, I'm going to be able to travel to Washington to be able to meet with the other 100 juniors or seniors now that are selected for the scholarship as well. So I'm really excited to be able to network with them, and they also give us a lot of resources for mentorship with the foundation and for future career support as we go on to achieve our higher education.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's so nice to be able to recognize outstanding achievement from our teachers and from our students. We're really proud of their successes, and I appreciate them coming tonight to be recognized. We have some upcoming events that we'd like to recognize for those of you involved with our early childhood development centers. We have Curriculum Night at Sossaman on Tuesday, August 25th, with Curriculum Night at Cooley on Thursday, August 27th. We have a very special concert that's going to happen on Friday, August 28th, with CG5 and Best Buddies, with the Higley High School Choir at the HCPA, and that's going to be an outstanding event for our district. Our next board meeting is Tuesday, September 1st. And then later in September, and we just want to make sure that we get this on everybody's calendar, is Friday, September 18th, is our business partner breakfast at Cooley Middle School. So with that, I conclude the superintendent's report. And at this point, if they beat me to it, but if anyone wants to step out before we move forward, now would be the appropriate time.
Next on the agenda are the requests to speak. Please play the video.
We value input from our constituents. This time on our agenda has been set aside for anyone from the audience who wishes to address the board. Those that wish to speak should have filled out speaker cards, which are due prior to the start of our meeting. Members of the board may not discuss, comment, or take action on matters raised that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431.01I, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. Also, we ask that audience members practice proper public meeting decorum, refraining from either negative or positive responses, including clapping or verbal outbursts, to ensure fairness to all points of view. Those that refuse to follow these rules may be asked to leave. In accordance with Policy BEDH public participation at board meetings, if considered necessary, the governing board president shall set a time limit on the length of the comment period in order to ensure that each individual has an opportunity to address the board. The president may also set a time limit for individual speakers. Thank you for your cooperation.
Up first, we have Pamela Ingermanson.
Good evening. My name is Pam, and I am a Higley taxpayer. I'm deeply concerned about the circumstances surrounding Scott Glover's resignation and the actions followed. The public needs to understand that this did not begin on July 20th. Scott put his house on the market in January 2026, knowing he was moving to Portugal. His house sold in March, and he then moved into an apartment within the district in order to remain on the board. He had months to notify the district, the board, and this community that he would not complete his term of office. Instead, he waited until July 20th, 2026, the final day, write-in candidates could file for seats on the November ballot. Scott's wife delivered his resignation letter that morning. Approximately 2 hours later, Travis White and Kathleen Richards showed up at the county office and filed paperwork to run for Scott's unexpired seat. But here's what makes the timeline even more concerning. Travis and Kathleen filed their paperwork approximately 2 hours before Scott submitted his written resignation to the Secretary of State. They were already trying to file for Scott's seat before his seat was legally vacant. So how did Travis and Kathleen know to show up and file specifically for Scott's seat when the entire board didn't even know there was a vacancy? How long did they know Scott was resigning? Who told them? Why did Scott wait until later that day to notify the entire board? Based on this timeline, I believe Scott, Travis, and Kathleen coordinated this in advance. Travis and Kathleen had information that allowed them to act before the rest of the community even knew that there was a vacancy on the board. Both Travis and Kathleen have submitted applications asking to be appointed to this very vacancy. I find this troubling. If these individuals coordinated in secret with a sitting board member to position themselves for his seat before anyone else knew it was becoming vacant, neither deserves to be appointed. Board service requires integrity, transparency, ethical judgment, and respect for the public. In my opinion, the actions of Travis White and Kathleen Richards demonstrate that neither should be among the 3 names the board recommends. Travis has now filed a lawsuit attempting to force a 2-year seat onto the November ballot rather than allow our elected Maricopa County School Superintendent, Shelley Boggs, to proceed with the vacancy process, one of the responsibilities she was elected to perform. This community deserves to know who knew Scott was resigning, when they knew it, and what communication occurred before July 20th. Higley voters deserve transparency and equal opportunity. These seats belong to the voters and the community, not to an individual board member or the people they may want to succeed them. Thank you.
Up next, we have Kim Jackson.
Good evening, President Wade, members of the governing board, superintendent, district administration, any teachers, staff, families, and community members. My name is Kim Jackson. I happen to be one of the people that submitted for the application for the vacant seat. So, hi, this is me. I actually wanted to just share a quick compliment in my 3 minutes. When I went to curriculum night last week, I have a kiddo over at Higley that's a sophomore and a kiddo that is an 8th grader over at Sossaman. And we had the opportunity to obviously go into each classroom and then switch and kind of mimic our kids' schedules. And so when I was over at Higley, we spent some time in my son's science class. So Mr. W, he is a science teacher over at Higley and he teaches my son. Beyond teaching, he creates an environment where students know he cares. He keeps cold water and small rewards available, even has charging cables and when students need them. Those may seem like little things, but they tell the students, I thought about you before you walked through my door. So I just wanted you guys to hear something positive that's happening out in the wild in our district. I'm really appreciative of Mr. W, and I know my son is as well. So thank you.
Up next, we have Heather Balch.
Good evening. I'm Heather Balch. I am also a Higley taxpayer, a Higley resident, a Higley employee, and a Higley parent. Go Higley. I have a little welcome back Higley poem for you all. Each hallway hums with vibrant sound where eager eyes look all around. Fresh notebook pages, wide new smiles, and laughter stretching down the aisles. Tiny hands paint a mess in preschool's play, while blocks and story circles light the day. In elementary halls, board games fill out as indoor recess sparks a cheerful shout. Middle schoolers trade quick laughs and navigate fears while finding their footing alongside their peers. While high school seniors find their rhythm too, mapping out the future, bold and new. Through every stage, dedicated teachers stay to guide and listen through the day, building strong bonds, warm and true, with every student and their family too. The spark is lit, the course is set, a better year we've never met. Higley schools won't aim amiss because together we've got this.
All right, that does it for requests to speak today. This brings us to consent agenda items. I motion to approve consent agenda items 5.1 through 5.11.
Second.
That would be Ms. Jarman seconding. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, Ms. Schultz? Or did we lose you? But I'm going to say motion carries 3, and then we can figure out what happened to Ms. Schultz. All right, 3-0. With that, we'd like to thank Bridges PTO, Topgolf, Target, and Whole Foods Market Foundation for their generous donations to the district. Okay. This brings us to item 6, selection of the 3 applicants to submit to Maricopa County Superintendent to fill the board vacancy. Discussion and possible action to select 3 applicants to submit to Maricopa County Superintendent for consideration in the filling of the governing board vacancy. Before we get started, if we could have on the screen the survey results, I would appreciate that. One of the things that I wanted to say before we get started with discussion on this is first, thank you to the 12 individuals who filled out their names to participate in being up here. I recognize that it is not something that a lot of folks are raring to do or are willing to do and all of that, and so it very much matters, and we're very much appreciative to all 12 who filed, essentially. It was great. I also wish to express gratitude to the individuals who took the time to fill out the survey. Obviously, none of this is a circumstance that was easy or a circumstance that we were prepared for, and so I'm appreciative to the district in trying to figure out what is the best way we can, cast a net to hear how our community feels about a seat that ultimately belongs to the community. So I'm appreciative of that. One of the things that I wanted to discuss, and I will kind of give where I'm standing, and then the other board members can fill in what they feel, how they feel it. The way I see it is we have 2 questions in front of us, and I'm going to be recommending one of those, and that is we have total submissions. At the end of the day, we should remove duplicates, and so I think we should only look at the submission surveys with duplicates accounted for, because I think that is as fair of a process as we can do for that. And we have 2 totals that we are looking at. All survey filled out, if you will, everybody who filled out the survey accounting for duplicates. So this could be individuals who are parents of ours, but don't necessarily live in district. For those of you who filled out the survey, you remember that there were options in which you could say that you are a parent, a past parent living in district, those types of things. Okay, so we have one of those surveys, and that is accounting for duplications, and then we have another one of those surveys looking at in-boundary only. So from my perspective as a board member with the 3 applicants, I think it is in our benefit to decide, do we look at the total survey or survey within district? And I'm open to discussion for those names or whatever other board members wish to do for that. Ms. Zimmerman, were we capable of getting Ms. Schultz back on, or is it just? Okay. So I will open it up if there are any other board. Here. Sweet, thank you, Ms. Schultz.
I'm so sorry.
No worries. If there are any other board members who wish to make any kind of statements, and then we can kind of have conversations around it before one of us motions for whatever it is we're pushing through here today.
President Wade, when it comes to the survey, I have significant concerns. I know the document labels one set of results without duplicates, but the methodology that was used says IP addresses with 5 or more submissions were removed. That means someone could have potentially submitted surveys 2, 3, or 4 times, and those responses could still be included in what we're calling without duplicate results. We already know that we filtered out 31 selections for, let's see, for Travis White, 31 were removed. For Kathleen Richards, there was 23 duplicates removed. For Brooke, there was 27 duplicates that were removed. But the fact that there could still be 2, 3, or 4 times still included, I have concerns with. And what I find sad is the fact that we can't count on adults not to cheat the system. And people realize that they can submit the survey over and over and over again, and they did exactly that, and that many times. And we can see that there are applicants where everybody that submitted for them did it one time. But I find that very troubling, that these are people who are supposed to be setting an example for our students, yet we had that many individuals cheat the system. In my view, we need individuals on the governing board who understand governance, who are able to ask thoughtful questions and scrutinize budgets and expenditures and make independent decisions and act ethically, even when doing so means disagreeing and being in the minority. So with that, I don't know how you want to proceed as far as discussing applicants or how we see the process going here.
Well, to be clear, in no way do I believe that we should discuss these applicants. I just don't believe that is our place, that is our position. All of us had the opportunity to run in an election and not have to hear a governing board share their feels on our mere existence, and so I don't believe that that is what we should do. I recognize and agree with you that this is an imperfect survey. I don't believe we're really in a position to be able to get a survey without problems, right? If we made it a situation in which everybody then gives us their address, their email address, those types of things, then every single person who voted gets their information exactly expressed how they voted it. And considering that there are feels towards how people feel about individuals who should be up here, I think at the end of the day, all of us, even the 12 individuals who applied and the adults who filled out that survey, want to do what's best for Higley. And that, at the end of the day, is what we are all here for, just trying to do the best that we can for the students in Higley. I don't believe there is any real way that we, in a position of not being able to check some of this information or having the resources to be able to do that, to get a system that would be without imperfections. I hear you with respect to the removing of the duplicates, and I understand that that means there is an individual who could have had 5 duplicates, and I go, that definitely is an abuse of that process, for sure. You also have homes in which grandparents live with us, and so we have 5 voting adults that could potentially actually vote in a real election come November. How do we know that? And I don't think we are really in a position, especially given the timeframes with which we were under, to do that in a way that's going to be great. Like, I just don't think this is an imperfect process. I think it's not going to be great. So my recommendation is the question on, do we do total or in boundary? I'm inclined to say total survey followers. I recognize that we have no means of being able to control or account for it. We have adults that abuse systems left, right, and center, but we also have people who, put their shopping cart back. Those people are real, they participate. It doesn't mean that the stuff that we have is invalid. So I am fine and I'm open to debate on whether or not we should stick to just the people who marked in boundary. But again, what if you didn't mark in boundary? Also, this is not a representation of our community. It's how many total people filled out this survey. It's nowhere near the total number of what we're going to get. This is always going to be imperfect, like outright. If you wish to say something about specific candidates or whatever, that's fine. If you're opposed to that, I just go, this should be out of our hands. I believe the best way that we could make that happen in the constraints with which we were dealing with was this. I fully accept that there are problems. I just don't see any better solutions.
President Wade, I can kind of relate to all this. I appreciate the district noticing the duplicates and kind of creating the opportunity to eliminate that. I know that this is not a perfect system, and honestly, I wish that this was actually on a ballot to make this more thorough and actually be more true to what the community wants. And I really respect that, and I really feel the need to push forward in kind of that tone to represent what the community wants. So I am, that last box, total without duplicates, in boundaries only, is what I'm ebbing for. ultimately, we submit these names, and ultimately, superintendent has the final say and interviews and takes whatever applicants. This is what I'm under the impression.
County
And-
superintendent, just to be clear.
Sorry, thank you. I appreciate that. County superintendent. And so ultimately, it's kind of a little bit out of our hands in a way, but I want to do my due diligence where I just present the best picks from our base, from our voters. And so I'm ebbing more towards the total without duplicates and boundaries because I think it's more true to that actual vote, to what the community. And I recognize there could potentially be discrepancies, but I'm grateful that our tech, that we did notice that there were duplicates and we were able to pull those. So I really feel like that bottom box is the best that we got. I mean, and I'm so grateful again for the district we are in the throes of like 2 weeks beginning of school. I'm so grateful for this. This caught me so off guard, and it really was a shock and a surprise. And then we had that 30-day timeline. So I really think that this is kind of the best that we can kind of do in this crunch.
Ms. Schultz, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I don't want to scold the community on what happened or if people voted more than once, because I don't know all the factors of that. If there were extra people, as you mentioned, President Wade, grandparents in the community, we all do things. I'm not perfect, but some of us make mistakes. Maybe they voted more than once. I don't know. I don't want to scold the community, but there could be where they didn't check the box. This isn't a perfect survey. I realize there's issues with it. So I am more inclined to go with people that did check that they were in the community, because that's the most important to me. The voters are most important to me. Having the Maricopa County superintendent choose is, I prefer to have our constituents choose, as they're the ones in the district. They know about our schools, they know who we are, and they know who they want to represent them. So I'm leaning towards what Ms. Jarman said. Sorry.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Van.
Yeah, I have a problem with the top 3 individuals having the most amount of cheating the system. That's a problem for me. And they are not any of my picks that I would select for this seat. And ultimately, the law states that it is up to the board to pick the 3 individuals. And the 3 individuals that are listed are definitely not my pick. So I have a problem with what Ms. Pam mentioned in her speech. I have concerns with what I think is unethical behavior and a possible attempt to disenfranchise our community because certain individuals conspired with Mr. Glover to...
Board Member Van Hook, that is not specific to this agenda item. And so
It
the
is,
actions of
because
Mr. Glover are not what we are talking about here today.
Okay.
And I think we should refrain from that.
Point of order. It is because it applies to 2 individuals that are on this list, and why I don't think that they are the appropriate candidate. So it is part of my explanation, whether you like what I'm saying or not. Those are the reasons why I don't think these individuals should be one of the choices, because I feel like if they're able to do this as individuals not on the board, I can't imagine what it could potentially be like with a board position. we need board members who act ethically, and I don't think that that is the situation here. I have concerns with a candidate who has been extremely divisive within the community, and the way that parents are treated on social media by this individual. I have concerns about how they, especially with, there were social media posts after the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the attack on our taxpayers attending
What road
another
are we going
school.
down right now? Point of order. I don't understand what's happening.
I am explaining that why I don't select these top 3 candidates. Are you saying that I don't have a right to do that?
To be clear,
We're discussing who picked from the community. We're discussing who picked the candidates, right? I don't understand how our individual opinions are of importance right now.
Because the selection is ultimately up to the board, and I, as a board member, have a right to say why I don't want to select certain candidates.
But your beliefs about someone speaking about something on social media, I don't understand if it affects you personally, is not.
It doesn't.
affecting our
It doesn't
board or
affect
the-
me personally. It impacts the
That's what you just
community.
stated.
So whether you like what I'm saying or not, doesn't give you a right to try to shut me up from explaining why I don't select these candidates.
Can we define point of order?
Madam President, members Van Hook and member Drummond, if I could just read to you about, briefly. So this agenda item is discussion and possible action to select 3 applicants to submit to the Maricopa County Superintendent for consideration in filling the governing board vacancy. The Attorney General's agency handbook states that the public body, so your board, may discuss, consider, or decide only those matters listed on the agenda and other matters related thereto. Other matters is defined narrowly. If there's a matter not specifically listed on the agenda that's brought up during the discussion, the best practice and one that will minimize subsequent litigation is to defer discussion and decision on the matter until a later meeting so that the item can be specifically listed on the agenda. And so my recommendation is to only discuss and take possible action related to the 3 applicants to submit to the county superintendent.
And that's exactly what I'm doing. I am discussing why I don't want to pick these 3 candidates. So again,
Ms. Van Hook, can you say which 3 candidates? Because I think we have 6 candidates in front of us. So which 3 candidates don't we want?
well, looking at the one that was recommended with the total without duplicates and boundary only, if it's recommended that the top 3 candidates that are on this list be the ones that are submitted, and I'm explaining why I have a problem with the top 3 candidates. So if I may continue to explain myself without interruption, as I'm allowed to do as a board member, and be able to explain why I don't choose these 3 candidates, I'd like to continue, please. Aside from Travis and Kathleen, I appreciate the fact that Brooke Garrett has volunteered for her children within the district, but I don't believe that, she brings the experience and things that I would particularly like to see for somebody to be able to be able to look at finances and be able to make judgment based on what is in the best interest of our taxpayers. And just based on what I know, I don't think that there's the qualifications there, and just knowing that there was situations involved, again, even with my own children, bringing my children into politics during online discussions, and I have concerns that, especially as a board member, how that would be handled with other people's children. So that's one of my concerns about this individual as well. So I don't know if you want to take a vote or how you want to proceed, but.
Again, to be clear, to suggest that the names that we see in front of us are because of rampant cheating is just based on feels and literally nothing else. I think it is fair, and I think it is an appropriate thing to say that we would like all board members, whomever they may be, to follow policy, to follow ethics, essentially, and do your responsibility with stewardship. I think that matters. Again, I'm appreciative to the individuals and the things that they are willing to do. It is not easy to be in this position. I think the wisest course of action here is going to be, I motion to approve in line with what feels like a majority at this point, to do the duplicates in boundaries for those individuals who's out of boundary and didn't have that. Again, I'm very appreciative. At the end of the day, our numbers are almost the same. The names are almost the same with the exception of one. I am going to motion to approve Brooke Garrett, Kimberly Jackson, and Travis White as the 3 recommendations from this board to send forth to the superintendent while the superintendent decides how they're going to fulfill their role for this position.
Second.
That would be Ms. Jarman seconding. Hold on, let me write stuff down. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed?
I would like to explain my vote. I might consider this only if Travis White could be removed. I know that sorry, I gotta find it. Mr. Taylor Francis did not submit an application through the district, but he followed lawful alternative process and applied directly to the county superintendent's office. And so I would have supported it if Travis White was not one of the picks, but because he is, I will vote no.
Motion carries 3-1. This brings us to information items. We have 7.1 BED-BA, School Board Operational Goals, first read. Superintendent Lotzenheiser, you have the policy update for this?
I do, President Wade, members of the board. So with the legislative session finished, we have an update on some of our policies coming out with legislation changes that will take into effect in September. So our goal for timing for all of these changes coming forward is we'll do first reads here, and then we'll move forward during our work study in September or the meeting after that so that we can get these approved and switched as quickly as possible. And so you're going to see a few different policies coming forward today. I'll present one, Marcus has one, and then Alan has one as well that we'll go through. So the first one is School Board Operational Goals, and this is policy BED-BA. We like to call it bed bug, but that's just a side note. Anyway, when you take a look at that, you'll see in blue what the additions are coming out of the legislative session. So the first change that we would like to add is on that first page, a proposal to impose or increase a tax rate, assessment, or fee in this state may not be placed on the consent agenda. So when we are preparing the agenda and looking through what's in consent, anytime that we have a tax rate, assessment, or fee, that will have to become as an action item and not in consent. And so that would be the first change that would be added to this policy. The second one on the back is more specific description about executive sessions, and as we prepare for executive sessions, so I'll go ahead and read the changes. An executive session may be scheduled as necessary during either a regular or a special meeting. When an executive session is to be held, the notice must state the specific provision of law authorizing the executive session. An agenda is also required and must contain a general description of the matters to be considered. The second thing that will be added is the following statement may be included on every agenda. The board may vote to hold an executive session for the purpose of obtaining legal advice from the board's attorney on any matter listed on the agenda pursuant to ARS 38-431.03. To me, the big one is this third point, a matter that is discussed in executive session on which the governing board must take a final vote or make a final decision must be placed on the regular agenda and not be placed on a consent agenda. Again, that we can discuss a lot of different things within executive session, but if there's action to be taken, you come out here in public. And we have done that before and followed that procedure already, but this is finalizing that within the specific board policy. And so this is the first read. And so if there are questions, we can ask those, or if there's any suggestions as we move forward, we can do that before we get to the second read. And so this is the first one that's going to be our update coming for policy BEDBA.
President Wade, Mr. Latzenheiser, I do have some recommendations for this policy. Right before where it says, upon request, copies of agenda shall be available, be made available to the public and the press. I'd like to add that agenda backup material shall include all contracts, supporting documentations, whatever it is. Sometimes we'll get like a contract renewal, but the initial contract's not included. So we'll have to ask for it. But I would like to add that language in there, whether it's presentations or any information that pertains to that agenda item, especially when it comes to contracts. The second item that I'd like to add is any material revisions to the agenda item after distribution of the agenda packet shall be clearly identified and accompanied by a summary of the changes. Christine does that currently through email, but I would like to put that within the policy. And then number 3, any governing board member may request an item to be removed from the consent agenda for a separate discussion. Again, this is practice today, but it would be nice to be able to have that in the policy. And then the fourth one, I'm not quite sure where exactly we would squeeze this in, but to say that in an emergency situation, any deviation from these procedures shall be documented in the meeting record, including the reason compliance was impracticable. I believe that would be like around special meetings. Oh, yes, the second paragraph of the special meeting. It's more changing the wording.
Okay, yeah, do you have I'm going to request of you if you'll send us the specifics like you did last time. That was very appreciated. And
Yes.
so if we could do that as we look at that.
Yep, and everything I mentioned, I will forward just like I did last time.
Okay, thank you.
Question for clarification, Mr. Latzenheiser, because some of the things that Board Member Van Hook suggested are part of like what we do as board member communication. I was under the impression that this policy is specific to how we have our agenda notification for the public. Is that correct?
To my knowledge, that is. I will ask Ms. O'Brien if that's.
President Wade, there's a whole series of policies in Chapter B around agenda setting, and this is just one of them.
Because we have other policies in which we talk about like our procedures, not necessarily policy. I think that one is in terms of we get it on Wednesday when we have to ask questions and all of that, because that's some of the stuff that, from my understanding, that you were talking about in there. That's not what you were talking about. Okay, great. Then maybe when I read it, my brain will make more sense of whatever. So I'll wait to see the sending of both policies, whatever she has and that for the second read. Because clearly I'm misunderstanding.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
President Wade, there is a policy, for example, BEDA is notification of board meetings. So really the different components of the open meeting law is broken down into several different policies.
Okay.
And for example, one of the recommendations that Board Member Van Hook made about pulling something from the consent agenda, that is statutory. I'm not sure, I thought there was a consent agenda item policy, but I'm not seeing it in your
It's
policies.
somewhere, I think. I just don't know where.
It probably is. I'm just not sure which chapter B policy it's in.
Sure. Okay. Is it possible, Ms. Zimmerman, or whenever we send that as well, if some of those things are included in other board policy, can you include that with that? Because I feel like sometimes we have so many different things with so many different policies that have different aspects. And so sometimes I think it's beneficial to include those things multiple times, and other times I think it can get us into some trouble. So it would just be helpful when I'm being able to read so I can better understand what I'm looking at. Thanks for looking out. Any other questions or comments from a board member before I move on to the next information item?
President Wade, I do just want to say that if there is, just like as you said, if there is a cross-reference to what I've mentioned that could potentially fit better in another policy, that's great. I would just like to be able to see these things within policy. And as you said, the consent agenda stuff is statutory, but I don't think that there's a policy that specifically lists this. That's all. Thanks.
All right, 7.2, IHA Instructional Program First Read. Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, Marcus Berkshire, this is you. You're up.
Good evening, President Wade, members of the board. We're bringing to you as a first read tonight an update to policy IHA, which will align it to House Bill 2423, which was signed into law in June and takes effect in September. The proposed language states if an advanced mathematics course is available, the district shall enroll a student entering grades 6, 7, or 8 in the next advanced mathematics course for which the student qualifies, unless the student's parent objects. Automatic enrollment applies if the student demonstrates the highest level of proficiency in grade level mathematics on either the statewide assessment or a benchmark assessment pursuant to ARS 15-708. When a student is automatically enrolled, the district shall notify the student's parent of the purpose and goals of the automatic enrollment and provide instructions for objecting to the placement. For implementation in Higley, we would be using statewide assessment results to identify students for these placements. Once we receive those results, we'll work with our middle schools to make the appropriate course placements and parent communications. Generally, for students entering 7th grade, that course would be Honors Mathematics 7. Students entering 8th grade, more than likely it's Algebra 1. Our 6th grade students are served with our K-6 elementary model. At that level, we'll continue our current practice of providing accelerated mathematics opportunities within the classroom. Any questions?
No, thank you. I do appreciate that we also express. So for people who are listening, if your kid does really well on a state assessment, and let's say right now your kid is in 7th grade and just taking regular level math because they, that's where they wanted, and they do really, really well on the state assessment, they can get into the honors track without having to do kind of a fuss, and it will happen automatically, but we will notify parents that, hey, this has happened to your child. If you do not want this thing to happen, here are the following steps. I think one of the benefits is sometimes you have kids who might do really, really well on a test and aren't always encouraged to continue because of certain things. And this, at the end of the day, it's state law. So that's what we got to do. Thank you. Anybody else?
President Wade, I'm just grateful how we're getting all legislative things in order, and I appreciate the work and effort to align.
President Wade, Mr. Latzenizer, I do have some recommendations on this as well, and it's just wording differences. For instance, the first paragraph, to be able to change it to say, the instructional program shall provide a rigorous academically focused, balanced, integrated, and sequential curriculum designed to ensure student mastery of the Arizona academic standards and prepare students for success in subsequent grade levels, post-secondary education, employment, and civic life. I think that this gives the board a clearer standard against which programs that we can actually be evaluated. Again, I will submit the changes that I'm requesting, and we can meet and discuss your thoughts. As far as the second option, which is the second paragraph, I have the instructional program will ensure that at least one kindergarten through 3rd K through 3 grade teacher, literacy coach, or literacy specialist in each school has received training related to dyslexia that complies with the requirements prescribed in ARS 15219 and 15501.01, including training that enables teachers to understand and recognize dyslexia and to implement structured literacy instruction that is systematic, explicit, multisensory, and evidence-based to meet the educational needs of the students with dyslexia. The reason why I did this is because I think that's the one.
Board Member Hook, you were saying to add that because that's already in here. It's right after the blue.
I think
Okay, yeah.
my changes on mine aren't, I had added some language.
Okay.
And I saved from board docs instead of what I actually put notes on. But my intention was to, kind of like we did at the last board meeting when we changed like 10,000 to 15,000. But what I wanted to do is see if we can, there was something that said July 1st.
Yeah, when that was put in, that I remember when we added that, when it was July 1st, 2022.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
That's when that part got added back then, and I think that was an upcoming date at the point, and so.
Well, my thing was to potentially remove it to say July 1st and make it like an ongoing requirement rather than retaining like an obsolete implementation deadline.
Now that makes sense. Yeah, we'll take a look at that.
And then number 3, I should look here. I have it printed. Where we have attention to the above listed priorities shall not result in neglect of other areas of curriculum. I just made a minor capital change there where it says English language arts, I changed the A to a capital. And then in number 2, separate is misspelled. Let's see, number 3. For number 3, for that attention to the above listed, I wrote instruction in other curricular or non-curricular areas shall not diminish the time, resources, or instructional emphasis necessary for students to achieve proficiency in the district's core academic subjects. So it kind of says the same thing, just in different words. And I think, again, this gives the board a policy basis for asking whether programs or initiatives are taking instructional time away from reading, math, science, etc. And then the last one is F, health, physical education, including mental health. For this, I'd like to see it say health, physical education, including mental health instruction as required by ARS 15701.03 with appropriate parental notification and in accordance with applicable parental rights under Arizona law and district policy. The statute says that mental health instruction is required as part of health education, but I also don't believe that mental health instruction may be included as part of other subject areas. And by what we have here, I feel like it goes beyond what is allowed by statute. So that is my final change, and then removes, again, I'll send you, but throughout the policy, we don't use the, I don't know what they're called, the S's in front of the statute, and then just this one has it. So I just wanted to be consistent throughout the policy. And then for observance days, if we can change, so it says September 11th, comma, in each year. If we can change that to say September 11 of each year. And then towards the end where it says instruction to student, that should be students. And that's all the changes I have for this one.
One thing I would like to express with respect to we have electives, things like AP Psych, for example, would have conversations about mental health. It's literally part of the AP curriculum. So I think when we look at that, can we, from a legal perspective, make sure we're not getting ourselves into trouble with respect to the elective courses that we offer for our students who have interest in programs or subject matter for that in general. This brings us to 7.3, JJAB, Limited Open Closed Forum, first read. Executive Director of Secondary Education, Mr. Fields, has a policy update on this. Mr. Fields.
Good evening. This is an update to policy JJAB. This policy explains when and how students may form and meet its clubs on campus while ensuring that the district complies with both federal and Arizona law. The key idea is that if a school allows any non-curriculum related student clubs to meet on campus, it generally cannot pick and choose which student groups are allowed to meet based on the group's viewpoint, including religious, political, or philosophical viewpoints. Policy is designed to comply with the Federal Equal Access Act, which protects student speech and religious freedom while making it clear that the school is not sponsoring those groups. The new section in blue refers specifically to patriotic youth groups. This section of the policy comes from ARS 15120.08, an Arizona law that was enacted to ensure that patriotic youth organizations have the same opportunity to recruit members in public schools as other community organizations. It's separate from the Federal Equal Access Act, but although the concepts are similar, both prohibit discrimination based on the type of organization. The Arizona law does not list organizations by name. Instead, it defines it a patriotic youth group by referencing organizations that Congress has chartered as patriotic societies in Title 36 of the United States Code, specifically references those organizations designated as chapters Title 36, Subtitle 2, Part B. So based on those federal charters, the organizations most relevant to K-12 schools are Scouting America, Girl Scouts of the USA, Boys and Girls Club of America, Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America, Civil Air Patrol Cadet Program, National FFA Organization, Naval Sea Cadet Corps, and Little League Baseball. Our policy establishes a consistent district procedure. The organization submits a request during the first 2 weeks of school. The principal approves the date and time. The presentation occurs during the first quarter of the school year, and then information may be distributed to students if it complies with district procedures. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Fields. This brings us to...
So, President Wade,
sorry, go.
I do have some recommendations for this as well. I didn't have questions, but I do have some recommendations. For right underneath where it says non-school person shall not be permitted to direct, conduct, control, or regularly attend such student groups, I'd like to recommend that we add that when any non-school group or organization is authorized by the district to make a presentation to students during regular school hours, the district shall provide parents reasonable advance notice identifying the group or organization, the general purpose of the presentation, and the date of the presentation, so that gives parents an opportunity to be able to opt out. And rather than saying all groups, I don't, for instance, want parents notified for chess club or DECA or student council, but specifically the policy covers student-initiated groups and not necessarily all the other ones that I've mentioned. This says that if HUSD lets an outside organization address children during school hours, that parents should know ahead of time and be given the opportunity to opt out if they'd like. My second recommendation is at the bottom of the page where it says the principal may provide a verbal or written approval. I'd like to see that a written approval instead of verbal. That way there's a written record that it has been approved. And my third recommendation is at the top of the page at the last sentence where it says student subject to the conditions provided in ARS. Actually, it doesn't say ARS in here, but throughout the policy, we do say ARS, so if we want to be consistent, to put ARS in there. But my recommendation is subject to the conditions provided in ARS 15120.08B, the principal may accept material provided by a patriotic group or its representatives for distribution to students. If the principal accepts the materials, the principal shall ensure that the materials are distributed directly to students on school property. The principal may request prior access to the material for approval and may determine the method of distribution directly to students. And by this recommendation, I think it captures the remainder of subsection B from the statute, because I feel like what we have here kind of stopped right after the first sentence from the statute. That's all I have. Thank you.
President Wade, thank you so much for some of that insight, Board Member Van Hook. I am concerned, though, about the distribution. I feel like that could go really south. I don't know. So I'm hesitant on that one, but I am all for the opt-out or even potentially opt-in. I want parents to be as informed as they can, and ultimately they have more say on what's best for their kids when it comes to these kind of things. Thank you so much.
Board Member Jarman, that is part of the statute, so it's state law.
I think this brings us to action item 8.1. Thank you, Mr. Fields. 8.1 DJE, bidding and purchasing procedures, second read and approval. Mr. Lotzenheiser.
President Wade, members of the board, so we're coming back on a second read and vote for approval on an update to policy DJE. If you recall from our last board meeting, we had language in there that said purchases of less than $10,000 would be required to get the quotes. The USFR has changed, and so now it's up to $15,000. But what we had asked for is kind of, as Board Member Van Hook mentioned with the previous one, to make it a little bit more so that we will just follow whatever the USFR changes, so that if the USFR changes to $20,000 next year, we're not going to come back to you. We'll just start using that when that change goes into effect. And so we did have some recommendations from Board Member Van Hook, and so Ms. Rushkamp and our purchasing manager and myself went through them to make sure that the recommendations, we either would put them in here or they were already listed within our regulation. And there are some additional things because of this we have added. And so I appreciate Board Member Van Hook sending us that email, because it was much easier than just trying to craft off of listening here. And so we were able to put some different things in. So if you will take a look, the things that were added since last time in the very first paragraph, we referenced policy GBEAA, staff conflict of interest, and policy BCB, board member conflict of interest. I think anytime that we're doing any kind of purchasing, we do need to be aware. We already have these policies in place. So we want to remind people that we have these policies in place so that they understand what the conflict of interest is for the employees and for the governing board as well. We went to a little bit more descriptive, and so when we go to this purchases not requiring bidding, I'll go ahead and read the different changes that we're looking at. Purchases below the amount specified within the U.S. Uniform System of Financial Record, USFR, for written quotes may be at the discretion of the superintendent. The district will exercise due diligence to ensure that purchases are advantageous to the district, reflecting the overall best value considering price, quality, availability, and operational needs. Written price quotations will be requested from at least 3 vendors for the transactions that meet the written quote threshold specified within the USFR, but not more than the amount calculated by the State Board of Education. Again, so we don't confine ourselves to those constraints written within that. Additionally, we look to make additional additions on the very last page where it says, when utilizing a cooperative purchasing contract, the district adheres to the due diligence requirements for cooperative purchasing as outlined in Arizona Administrative Code R72191D rule, and the USFR compliance questionnaires required by the Office of the Auditor General. And so we looked at that suggestion, worked with purchasing to make sure that what we put in there ultimately, what do we want? We want to make sure, even that if we're using a cooperative contract, that the district is getting and being the most efficient use of the resources and the funds that we do have. That is our goal. And so by putting that within the policy, we're going to be able to comply with what the Auditor General is going to ask us to our audit. That's when you talk about the compliance questionnaire and make sure that we're meeting what's required from the administrative code. I think what's important anytime you look at this policy, but even understanding what our thoughts are on this, we know it is our job to be the best stewards of the money that we have, and we have procurement, and we follow the procurement through the USFR, and we do our very best to find the best price, because we know it's important and we value the money that we have from the state and from our voters, and we do our best to make sure that we're complying and getting the best deal possible that we can. And so while there were some other suggestions made, and those were given to you in status, we felt like these are the ones that would be appropriate to be put here in the policy. There is regulation that talks about in our regulation, it talks about our emergency procurement, which we've had to do with HVAC, and as well as making sure that we are appropriate in how we're spending our monies. The question was asked within the policy, should we have something that requires the superintendent to bring back a list of all of the vendors who we procured things with that was less than 10,000, and we felt like that would be more appropriately fit within the regulation. As well as any time a board member would ask for additional information from us, we do compile reports and give reports to you, not necessarily because it's mandated in policy, but it's a request from a governing board member. So going through this process, again, I appreciate Board Member Van Hook sending them to us. We researched, we came up with the ones we felt were most appropriate in that. I actually followed back up with Board Member Van Hook to just let her know where we were thinking going through that. And these are the changes that we're recommending to this policy tonight.
President Wade, Mr. Latzenheiser, I did look through, I compared my recommendations to policy and to regulation, and the only thing that I could not find, and I believe you mentioned that this would be in regulations, but it was the superintendent shall provide the governing board an annual summary of procurement made below the written quote threshold.
So,
and did I miss that somewhere?
Yeah, since we don't bring regulations to the governing board for approval, I have it ready to go to update that verbiage put in here, and so then I can give that to you within the regulation. So I actually added it to the very last page, and that would be coming should we get this approved tonight.
Okay, that's why I couldn't find it.
Okay, yes.
I pulled what was current. Okay.
Hasn't been pulled yet.
Thank you.
Ms. Schultz, are you still with us before I motion to vote? Just want to make sure you're connected.
I am.
Okay, perfect. Do you have any more questions or comments? Because I just wanted to make sure before I vote. Okay, perfect. No, you're fine. I motion to approve the DJE bidding, purchasing, and procedures.
Second.
That would be Ms. Jarman seconding. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. This brings us to 8.2, approval of governing board resolution, food and beverage expenditures. Mr. Latzenheiser.
President Wade, member of the board, we're asking the board to make a resolution tonight that would authorize the district to purchase food and beverage for official district events pursuant to ARS 1532, Section 39, and the Uniform System of Financial Records, USFR. What we're asking you to do tonight is to give us a resolution that would allow us to spend money on a list of, you can see from the thing, different authorized events that we do where we provide food and beverages for employees, for the community, for governing board members who attend at different times. And so from a big picture perspective, there are times that we provide food for our employees. For instance, when we go and we have an administrative retreat for 2 days, that's going to be in this room for 8 hours a day, 2 days, we provide breakfast and lunch. When we have the business partner breakfast, we provide breakfast. When we have the teacher of the year, we provide hors d'oeuvres and different things out there. Sites do a lot of different things where they can provide. In the past, we've spent around, I'm going to just estimate it, around $45,000 a year in terms of providing these food and beverages to our employees and other groups at these events. I'm trying to put this in a perspective that I hope people can understand. While you see and hear the word $45,000, you think that is quite a bit. We have around 1,600 employees. And so if you break that down, that's about $28 per employee per year. And so when we have things like I got to make sure I get this right, the State of Arizona Accounting Manual, they can actually define how much in reimbursement we could get and allow people for their meals. And correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Rushkamp, but breakfast is reimbursable up to $20. Lunch is up to, I believe, $30. Dinner is up to $40 when we go through that. Yet when we're looking at our total expenditures about what we supply for people, we're talking about $28 per person. And I think what this resolution does is it gives us the flexibility and our sites the flexibility to work with donors, to work with their PTOs. For us, here there's two places that the money comes from. One is from gifts and donations. And it's very specific. We cannot spend M&O on this. We spend gifts and donations. The other one is and that is for Fund 530, 520. 530 is our fund for community schools. That's the other place.
No, you were correct. So 530 was what you just said, yes.
Okay, we practiced this earlier and I wanted to make sure I got them correct. So thank you, Ms. Rushkamp. But we're not taking it out of M&O, we're not taking it out of capital, we're taking it out of gifts and donations. And the other place we have is from our earnings from our community schools. And so what we'd like the board to do is allow us to have this flexibility. If we don't have a resolution, what would it require if we wanted to spend money would come back and list every single event at every single campus. And we'd have to time it by board meeting. And from a logistical standpoint, we want to have the ability to plan ahead and make sure those things are going forward to be able to provide them. For instance, we have the business partner breakfast coming forward. We could ask for a donor to just come and bring the food. And sometimes that's what PTOs do. Or we could have a donor that says, hey, I'd like to sponsor this and I'd like to give you $3,000 for the food for that day. Well, as soon as it comes into us, it becomes our money within gifts and donations. By having this resolution, what it would allow us to do is then procure the meal for that day and go through that process. And this resolution would give the governing board then is giving us the authority to do that. And so I'm hopeful because I think these are small, different tokens that we can give to our employees, or when we have events, a lot of times the food helps and goes a long way. Sometimes people ask, well, how are you putting restrictions on what kind of food you get, right? Like, as much as I would love a steak every single time, we're not doing that. What we're doing is we have our processes here within things we do at the district office. We bring it to our cabinet. They bring a proposed amount. They bring a proposed what the meal is going to be. And as a cabinet, we review it to make sure that it's an appropriate thing to go. For instance, when we had our admin retreat and we looked at our lunches. So our lunches are, we did Jason's Deli's boxed lunch one day that they came in, and the other day was Barrow's Pizza. Why do I go to Barrow's? Well, I appreciate Barrow's for giving school districts a discount on their pizzas. They're within our boundaries, so we're providing and going back and working with someone that we can support then. And so we try to make those decisions and not to be exorbitant in what we spend or what we do, but it's also a nice touch if they're going to be in here working with us all day. So that's what this resolution would allow us to do.
Some of the other events on there, just because I think it matters, we have like the new hire orientation, we've got Teacher of the Year stuff. So I mean, I think I recognize that the state has changed what we have to do in terms of operating, in terms of approving all of this. I'm appreciative of the keeping in mind what we do each year and kind of getting it done so we can make these appropriately and allow district to continue to function. So I appreciate it.
I appreciate on section 1 at the bottom of the first page, I don't know if it's the last bullet. Let me look real quick. No, it's not. But it says food and beverages shall not be provided for purely social gatherings or personal celebrations. So it is really specific. And honestly, that's what I was cautious about with this. I'm glad you clarified what accounts it's coming out of and not that M&O. And then and have examples of what type of meals are being provided. I don't think that the district is very lavish in its meals. Some districts, you will see them splash on the news where they are really excessive, but I've been kind of comforted that Higley really doesn't operate that way. We are very mindful, very judicious in these monies. We know that people do it's precious, money is precious, and so we really are fiscally responsible when it comes to these kind of things. And I love also the delegation of the administrative procedures, section 5. Just that again, that Mr. Lotzenheiser is being mindful of that, and his team is touching base with all of that. So I'm grateful for you kind of explaining that. That gives me more comfort in this. Thank you.
Okay, President Wade. So I have several concerns about this resolution because of the new requirements for governing board oversight. I did ask that this be removed from action items and be placed on the agenda as informational item, and I was told that admin wanted this as an action item. So my first question is, what exactly was so urgent that we couldn't wait until to be able to bring it as informational item, and that we couldn't bring it and have discussions and then potentially bring it back at the next meeting to be able to make possible changes, and how waiting would have impacted our students' ability to learn and our employees' ability to perform their jobs just in a matter of a month, to allow us the opportunity to review this and, again, recommend changes. I don't object to resolution because, we had the option to have every board member approve every individual food purchase or do a resolution. So I do agree with option 2. It's a more feasible option, but my concern is the USFR says that when board member policy or resolution is used, that it should identify specific events or activities, establish expenditure limits such as a per person cost, specify which district fund may be used, document the public purpose and district benefit, and be detailed enough to eliminate discretion by the superintendent, principal, or head teacher in carrying it out. I recognize that the resolution addresses section 2. It establishes the per person expenditure limit, and section 4 addresses the public purpose and district benefit. However, section 2 says per meal reimbursement limit in SAAM 5025. And 5025 establishes the rule for meals and incidentals, while the actual reimbursement rates are contained in SAM 5095. So section 2 references 5090, no. So I think that section 2 should reference 5095 instead of 5025. Because that's what sets the limits. Then my larger concern is USFR says the resolution should specify which district funds may be used. Section 3 doesn't actually identify the specific funds. It says purchase may be made from district fund legally authorized for such expenditures. So again, the resolution is not following what is required by the USFR. We know that the information administration provided, that these expenditures are coming from 520 and 530, but we need to specify that in the resolution rather than leaving the funding source open-ended. I also have concerns about the the open amount of authorized activities. We have, department retreats, leadership meetings, working meals, off-site meetings, collaborative planning. It also allows other district-approved meetings and community engagement activities approved by the superintendent. If almost any district-sponsored activity can qualify, I don't see how this satisfies the USFR's direction to identify specific events and activities or eliminate administrative discretion. Section 5 says the superintendents cannot authorize expenditures outside the specific event identified in the resolution. But when the resolution itself authorizes other district-sponsored activities or other district-approved meetings and other celebratory events, what exactly is the limitation that would comply with USFR's direction? And as someone who is actually on this committee and worked on these updates, I believe the purpose of the requirement is to provide greater governing board oversight and accountability over expenditures. And this resolution, I think, is too broad. And it does the opposite by giving the prospective approval for such a wide range of expenditures. Another change is working meals. I think that needs to be tightened. Saying a meal is allowed when it improves operational efficiency can justify virtually any meeting held over lunch. I think that needs to say working meals may be provided only when the duration, scheduling, or operational requirements of the meeting make conducting official district business during a customary meal period reasonably necessary. As you mentioned, the district spent $40,000, $44,000 within, last 2 years, and those aren't insignificant numbers. And if the board's going to authorize these expenditures, then I believe we need to have the safeguards in place that the USFR is intended to do. So with that said, I don't think it meets the requirement by USFR, and I think that those changes need to be made before we can approve it.
Ms. O'Brien, in your legal opinion, because that's what you're here for, do you feel that this resolution satisfies the law that it's referencing?
So, Madam President and board members, my partner Jennifer McLennan drafted this resolution, and there were some options for the district on specifically around expenditure limit, but this resolution, I literally distributed it to every school district I work with, and they are currently passing it. The reason for, if I could just give a little bit of background, so in around the 2010 era, there was an Attorney General opinion which raised a concern about the provision of food and beverage to employees as a possible gift of public funds. And so then all of your employment contracts now have a term that states that, on occasion, food and beverage will be provided to foster good working relationships, right? And so that good working relationships eliminates the gift issue. The urgency with passing a resolution or items, the food and beverage items coming before your board is because the USFR regulation or the USFR requirements were effective July 1 of this year. And so that currently applies. So if the board decides not to pass this resolution or bring it back, then administration will need to bring those expenditures to the board, before the board approves the resolution to comply.
Okay, thank you. Next question I have. Prior to this resolution and the amount of money that we have paid in the past, all of those things, whether they come from 520 or 530, still come via vouchers through us as a board. Is that correct, Ms. Rushkamp?
President Wade, members of the board, yes, that is correct. Everything does come through on a voucher.
I appreciate that. Look, at the end of the day, I struggle a whole bunch with the idea that we are expected, and by we I mean public schools, are expected to not exist in the real world around us, right? We are out here with human persons doing different jobs. The implication that we are willy-nilly providing food left, right, and center for these types of things, it already specifically expresses it's not like for a happy birthday, Karen, those types of situations, right? We are talking about business partner breakfast, which does good things for our district. It brings nearby businesses in, and it helps with funding in that they provide donations. They come see what it is that we're doing during these things. And if you have not gone to a business partner breakfast, especially as a board member, I recommend going to seeing some of these outreaches and how these things are. We also are trying to run a business at the end of the day. And so when it comes to employees, we wish to have them. And we wish to have good employees. And one of those things would be to treat an employee as a human person in front of you. And the idea that we have a training and, dear God, we're providing lunch and breakfast is a crazy thing to suggest that there is a recklessness or a lack of oversight when still every single voucher that gets purchased has to come through us and has been for the last multiple years. All of these events, if I'm correct, Mr. Lotzenheiser, are events that we have done in years past. Is that correct?
To my knowledge, yes.
Now, there might be instances of 3 years ago we didn't do that or whatever. Sure, fine. My point is, I appreciate the efforts of this resolution. I appreciate your legal expertise as to how this resolution is presented and why it is presented, and an idea of saying that there is more oversight that is needed. When we are here living oversight every meeting and putting forth vouchers and approving them to where if vouchers are things that we do not like, we have the opportunity, and I recognize that there are issues in terms of timeline that some people have for those things. My point is, when we see reckless spending, we have the opportunity to see that in real time and make changes as we need to. I appreciate that you all have a job to do day in and day out. And your job requires you to not only ingratiate yourself to the public, but to our staff, because you can literally drive 2 miles away and you have, depending on which direction you go to, other school districts available to you to work at, available to you to send your student to, available to you to become a member or interact with that community. I, again, am appreciative of the remarkable accounting work and transparency that we routinely do here. I think for my person, considering it satisfies legally what we need to be able to do, I'm going to continue to operate under the process that district is handling their obligations appropriately. I, as a board member, still have access to this information and have the capability of bringing up things if I feel that there is a recklessness that is taking place. So it would be my recommendation that we motion and move forward for this, mostly so we can start planning the business partner breakfast that's coming up in September, as well as satisfying the law because it passed effective in July.
Oops, President Wade. Okay, so some corrections. No one said or claimed that anything that you literally just mentioned, no one said that. I literally said, I don't oppose a resolution. What I'm simply asking is that the resolution meet the requirements of the USFR. And what the USFR says, and you know, I'm not sure if you read it, but what it specifically says that if we didn't pick the resolution, that the expenditures need to come to the board before the purchase is made. So by you saying, oh, we get the vouchers are after the fact, where the USFR specifically requires it before the fact. Which is why we need to have these things within the resolution, because it is now a requirement by the USFR. We need to specify the events and not leave it to be so broad. We need to specify the codes. We need to specify all these things that are being asked to be specified. Yet the way that the resolution is currently written, it is way too broad to meet those requirements. And I'm asking that we fix the resolution in order to meet those requirements. So all the claims that you just made, nobody ever said any of those things. So clearly you misunderstood what I was saying. I'm not opposed to buying lunch. I'm not opposed to providing food when it's being conducted during district business. But at the same time, I need to ensure that the resolution meets the requirements being asked.
To be clear, Board Member Van Hook, I'm expressing my opinion much in the same way that you have. Again, Ms. O'Brien, from a legal perspective, do we meet the USFR requirements with this resolution?
In my opinion, yes.
Okay, thank you. So do you have anything that you would
want
like?
a small?
I'm sorry, go ahead,
What size
Ms.
is that?
Schultz.
Do you think other places have it or no? Okay.
Board Member Schultz.
Anyone
there
try
are
it
other-
on or no? You want that sweatshirt, Ceci?
Can we mute her?
Ms. Schultz, we're getting your answer here. Go ahead, Ms. O'Brien.
Board Member Schultz.
I'm so sorry.
Other governing boards are considering this resolution right now in the same form. It's been widely distributed to school districts. Again, the only options are around the expenditure limits. And candidly, if the board wanted to select authorized events, those are also business decisions.
Sure. So do we not even make the correction for the 5025 to 5095?
Madam President, Board Member Van Hook, in my opinion, 5025 is the correct citation, but I can verify that and bring it back if it's a concern. And Member Van Hook, it's at SAAM 5095 is what you think the citation should be?
Yes. 5025 establishes the rules for meals and incidentals, and the actual reimbursement rates are under 5095.
Thank you.
Ms. Jarman, did you have something you wanted to say a minute ago?
I feel that the initial was very cumbersome. And so I really appreciate this resolution. If we could have text scroll to section 1 and show those authorized events, just so that the viewers here and at home can see it. Majority of this is trainings and it's teacher supports. And I really like to utilize training and keep them kind of here as much as they can. So I really think that this is a good tool for support. Again, if I saw discrepancies, then I would voice that. And I would want more policy in place, more oversight. But in all my questionings, and I feel that this is very thorough. Again, our superintendent is touching base with that. He gave some examples. We know generally which accounts come from. Sharon, can you kind of like say in general account, what, 520 and 530, where are these coming from? Again, can you reiterate that one more time for me?
Yes, President Wade, Vice President Jarman. So Fund 530 is, as it's called, gifts and donations. So just as it sounds, tonight you approved gifts and donations again. So it could be anybody donating funds to the district. Some designate where they need to be spent. So those are put in a different, they're in the same fund, but they are put in a different bucket where they can't be used. Others are given just to use at the district's discretion or the school's discretion. So those are where the funds come. The schools use Fund 530 for their events that they have on their sites. The district here, we use Fund 520. So that comes from revenue generated from things that the district is doing, services we're offering. So it's not taxpayer dollars. It's revenue that's being generated from a service taking place.
Okay, so it is not, that's good to note. It is not taxpayers. This is donations. Hard majority is donations.
Correct.
So I'm appreciative of that. But again, I will pivot and say we got some examples. We know exactly kind of their offerings. We are not being elaborate. Again, it seems that the district is trying to utilize these training times, keeping the teachers in that classroom. Board Member Van Hook, is there something specific? Like you kind of mentioned quite a lot of things. I wish there was just one that we could kind of just add in or something. But I really am liking the way that we're at. I just to show that I'm accommodating to you, etc. But I really like the resolution that we have in front of us. And again, I love the each category breaking down, showing the delegation, the administrative procedures, the public purpose, the funding sources, the limits, and then again, those authorized events. I really feel like this list is pretty thorough in a way, so I would kind of disagree with the opinions generally with the other board member, which I'm entitled to my opinion, and that's okay. All right, thank you.
Vice President Jarman, these aren't my opinions, and these aren't recommendations that I'm just creating because I want to create these changes. These are literally from the USFR requirements. You are more than welcome to go to the Auditor General's site and read the pages of changes of the USFR that was done after this committee met and updated the USFR according to all the recommendations. So again, I'm not just creating these because I want to make these changes. These are literally requirements by the USFR, which is a state agency.
Okay.
Madam President?
Yes.
If I could just jump in, I looked at the references that Board Member Van Hook was suggesting possibly changing in paragraph or section 2, expenditure limits. So I believe that she asked whether we should be citing to the State of Arizona Accounting Manual, section 5095, and that lists maximum reimbursement rates, and section 5025 references off limits approved by the JLBC. So in my opinion, the resolution as written is sufficient.
Thank you. All right. With that legal advice, I'm going to motion to approve the governing board resolution food and beverage expenditures.
Second.
That would be Ms. Jarman seconding. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Based on how it's currently written, I can't agree to approve. And it's not that I don't agree with being able to feed staff and everything that we've done in the past, but I want to ensure that we're meeting this requirements, and based on my understanding, I don't believe that we are. So with that, I vote no.
Motion carries 3-1. This brings us to 8.3, ratify expense voucher 1005. Any questions or comments from the board?
Bear with me, I'm just trying to get to my notes. I did ask for this voucher to be pulled because I do have concerns that we're using this book for elementary students. I get the purpose of the book, but I don't know the intent. I know that it's, the book's celebrating kindness, friendship, diversity, uniqueness, and individuality. But I also know that the publisher of this book explicitly connected the book with the LGBTQ pride, and even in 2024, Anderson Press launched an official Elder Pride campaign, and the official Elmer website states Elmer has been called an LGBTQ plus hero. I don't believe that this is an appropriate themed book for our students. Again, this is for elementary students, and there's so many other options that could be chosen, yet this is what was picked. So that's all.
So I'm going to express for those listening what this book is about, okay? It's called Elmer. It's about an elephant. He's a patchwork elephant. He looks like a patchwork quilt, very vibrant, a lot of colors, okay? He's funny. He makes jokes, and then he starts to feel that maybe people are laughing, not at his jokes that he's making, but because he's different. So then he finds berries and rubs himself all over in them, so then he looks like every other elephant, and he's chilling with his elephant friends, and then he's his regular clownish self because he yells boo really loudly to scare everybody that's there. And all the other elephants talk about Elmer really would have loved that joke, great joke, and then it rains, and the stuff washes away. So you can see Elmer was there the whole time, and then it does end with all of the elephants having vibrant colors at the end. I struggle with the idea that your concern is a publisher of a book, not the book specific. I struggle to understand where we would find concerns with this book. The idea that an LGBTQ student sees that it's okay to love yourself, whomever you are, is fantastic. But to be clear, all students, every single human person right now benefits from loving themselves and accepting themselves for whomever they are and for however they look. The idea that we would think that that is somehow an insidious thing for our children to read is bonkers. I grew up reading Rainbow Fish. That would be a similar story in the idea of that your differences can be one of the reasons that you're amazing. I don't understand why we have these constant pushes against anything that might be LGBTQ adjacent. First off, that's blatant homophobia. Second off, nothing in this book is about LGBTQ community. It is about an elephant who is a patchwork elephant, and he wants to feel accepted and loved, and he learns how to find it within himself. What a remarkable thing for us to teach to our students. There are all number of books that we read to kids throughout the day that literally talk about these same types of things. I like The Cool Bean, for example, and Bad Seed. All of these books that we read to elementary kids are teaching kids how to exist in a world of differences, because your classroom is a world of differences. not just LGBTQ differences. Nothing about this book is that. And the concern is the publisher. That's a crazy amount of expectation to say that we cannot even interact with the product because the people who publish it may exist in a way that we disagree with. That is literally every aspect of our lives. Every aspect of our lives is attached to something that somebody may believe or do that we disagree with. But then to deny a book to a kid because they might feel love and acceptance, I struggle to understand how this book should not be allowed to have for kids, because none of the concerns that you expressed are in there. Go read it. I highly recommend it. It's a great book. I find, what world are we getting in to where that's what a sad existence we must be if the idea of a kid learning to love themselves is a threat. That's crazy. That should be something we all want for all of our kids, to just love you for who you are. What a bonkers suggestion.
At first, President Wade, I'm at first kind of reviewing this. I reviewing the book, it has some hot topic words, I think, in it or something. But the more I researched the book and stuff, I really thought that it was a really deep dive in order to take it off the thing. So it's colorful, which is, you guys, that's age appropriate, let's be honest. Colors kids love. It's more of this patchwork and stuff like that. There is the mention of parade in there. But people go to 4th of July parades. There's all these kind of different things, and elephants travel in a parade. So I really kind of didn't see the deep dive. I see why maybe some people could associate, but, and I just think that this book has been used for a long time. I believe it's been around 20 years or something, and a lot of districts in Texas and all those kind of things, they utilize it. This question was brought up, and the district did respond that the book was purchased as an integration of literacy in a specials class in which students would understand that everybody has unique talents and skills. And I would say that that was the underlying tone that I had with the book. And so it kind of didn't concern me as much, as I really thought it was more of a deep dive to think that it was potentially political or hot topic ways. There was another book, though, a couple that I even questioned too. So just so you guys understand, I do look at things. Some people might claim I don't, but I do. But this was approaching the topic about war and such. And so I even researched that a couple paragraphs down. But all the reviews I saw, it was age appropriate. And I was grateful for that people put their opinions out there. The thing is life is different, life is crazy. We are in the education field, so we are presenting certain things. And therefore, I think that age appropriate is very great. So sticking to that. But ultimately, in my research, I didn't think that this was as deep dive as what potentially that, if I explained that well.
President Wade, to say that it's homophobic not to have such books in our taxpayer classrooms is absurd. Yet, I remember a few months ago, a traffic safety book was so controversial and not okay for our students, yet this is okay. The absurdity there, talk about absurdity. But yet here we are. You go on this tangent of how, it's homophobic. No. There's so many other books that our students could be learning from instead of subliminal messages that could potentially be given to students that parents would oppose to. But yet parents didn't have the opportunity to say whether it was okay for their child to be in the classroom or not for any type of book. So sure, assume whatever you want to assume, but there are parents that are opposed to such content. and they don't have a choice to speak out when these books are purchased and in classroom reading and parents aren't given the option to opt out. So for those parents, I am able to speak out and say, maybe this isn't appropriate. I don't know why it was purchased. I don't know the intended use. I don't know what grade it is. I don't know who the teacher is. And all I can do is research it on my own and be able to find information on it and read the book and be able to speak on it from that perspective.
So what subliminal messaging would you say was in the book upon your reading it? Because that's what you said, the subliminal messaging that a parent may have an issue with. I'm asking, what subliminal messaging exists within Elmer that you have an issue with?
As I explained earlier, that I don't think that a book that is used as a campaign is potentially, able to be, not able, but should be used in a classroom when we have so many other options. But, as previous discussions, you think it's okay to have kids read about sodomy and other things. Like those things, it's okay to you. It challenges. I mean, those things challenge our students because, there's no other options. That's absurd.
To be clear, I do believe in challenging children at all age levels, from what they are, what they see, and how they grow. That's kind of how schools work. To also be clear, in no way, shape, or form am I suggesting that saying no to certain books is homophobic. What I am suggesting is a book that is about an elephant who learns that it's okay to love themselves in their wonderful way with which they were created. Again, very bright and vibrant colors because it is a children's book. I believe it is homophobic to suggest that that is an agenda. I believe that that is an unrealistic expectation because as a parent, what parent does not want their kid to learn the message that who you are is outstanding? No matter what you look like, no matter what you believe, no matter what shoes you have or where you sit, you, the person, is amazing. And to suggest that that's somehow not age appropriate for any age of a human person is bonkers to me. Yes, there is no agenda in this book other than talking about an elephant who wishes to learn that they're okay. Much in the same way that giraffes can't dance and Gerald learns that his weird dancing is totally awesome. There are numbers of children's books who do this because kids struggle with self-acceptance, because kids compare themselves to literally every other kid around them. So for our ADHD kid, you are awesome the way that you are. For our autistic kid, you are awesome the way that you are. Our poor kid, our kid who's struggling at math, whoever else, and our closeted queer kid, because you feel it's unsafe to be so. All of you are great the way that you are. There is no hidden agenda in teaching human persons to love and accept yourself. Because maybe if we had more love and acceptance of ourselves, we would have less hate towards others or feel less threatened by somebody talking about accepting themselves. It is a crazy world we live in which benign things have to become more than the words that they are. It is a crazy thing to suggest that it is threatening for kids to learn to accept themselves, whomever you may be. I yield back if somebody else has comments before I motion. I motion to ratify expense voucher 1005.
Second.
That would be Ms. Jarman again. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is Ms. Schultz still on or did we lose her? Okay. All those opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 2-1. Does anyone have any requests for future agenda items? Sweet. I motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
That would be Ms. Jarman. Closing it out. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Drive safe, everybody.